All right, YouTube family, let's get right into it. So we got a simple presentation on the body game method. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because every time I get on the call, every time I get questions, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of that, it's always the same questions over and over. And it is the reason that most people even start this journey, right? Obviously, a lot of people are motivated by chicks and shit like that, but everyone wants to be comfortable with their shirt off. So we're going to go into exactly how to get to that point where you're aesthetic and you're comfortable with your shirt off. You have the confidence that you're looking for. You'll notice a common theme in this and all my videos, to be honest. I'll connect this to the body game playlist, but you'll notice that this will be talking primarily about fat loss because I have seen that a lot of people, they'll lose the weight fast. I see a lot of TikTok transformations like that too. I've had some people come to me, they lost they lost a lot of weight, they had a lot of loose skin. If you get loose skin, that's usually a sign that you lost weight too quickly or you didn't use the correct methods. And this is all about losing fat while maintaining muscle. As you can see here, this is 226 on the left, and then right here, 183, and there is no loose skin because I took it slow, but I also focused primarily on maintaining muscle mass, strength training, and high protein nutrition. All right. So this video is not for you, as we all say. It's not for you if you make excuses and you're lazy as shit. If you don't want to lose fat and maintain muscle and you just care about the scale, you don't really care about body fat and the quality of fat loss. If you complain about things that you aren't willing to work for, this is definitely not for you, which is like half the fucking population. If you're not willing to improve your nutrition, because nutrition is going to be a big part of this, to be honest. So if you're not willing to lock in on your nutrition, do the bare minimum, which is tracking. I know a lot of people who say stupid shit like, "Oh my god, it's like, how do I lose fat without tracking?" It's like, dude, if you don't track how much you're eating, how do you know? You don't track how much you're eating. How do you know if you're in a deficit or not? It's just like if you're trying to save money, but you don't know how much you're spending, you don't know how much you're making. How the fuck are you going to save money? All right, it's not going to happen. So another thing is if you're not willing to be disciplined or build discipline, because it is a skill that you learn over time. You're not born with it. Nobody's just born with discipline. All right. Now, this video is for you if you are not comfortable with your shirt off, but you want to be comfortable with your shirt off. If you're constantly wearing baggy shirts, I know a lot of people on the last live that I was on, they're saying, yeah, they wear baggy black shirts all the time. So if that's you, then this video is definitely for you. If you're constantly failing to get the aesthetic look, you're constantly doing different diets, going back and forth, if you're sick of getting disrespected by chicks, and I know a lot of people that I've talked to, they've said things like, yeah, man, like I always get ghosted, I have no respect, blah, 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 all that stuff, man. So this video is definitely for you. Now, we all know that losing fat could be a struggle, obviously, which is why this video exists and why a lot of people usually look up losing fat and try to lose fat, and people are constantly trying to. A lot of us are out of shape, frustrated with stubborn fat. We don't like endless cardio, right? Which makes this video perfect for you because this is not going to be about endless cardio. A lot of us have tried a bunch of diets, and like I said, a lot of people have done hours on the Stairmaster just trying to get rid of the fat that it took them years to gain, but they want to lose it overnight. So I'm going to show you exactly how to drop the fat, build the aesthetic body, and do it with minimal to no cardio because the reality is a lot of people, for some reason, they feel like working harder means working smarter, and in reality, working smarter is working smarter, and working harder at the wrong thing is just a waste of fucking time. All right. So, as you guys know, when I was going through, this was like back in 2020. When I was going through, this was halfway through the cut, by the way, so my face was still fat as shit, even though I was halfway through the cut. But anyways, I was going through a toxic breakup like a lot of us have or whatever, right? So I developed some bad eating habits. It was during COVID, so, we was getting some burgers and fries. Listen, I don't know what it is about chicks, but they always want to eat goofy shit. So I was eating burgers and fries, eating some fucking cookies, eating a bunch of desserts and shit. Then I started working overnights where I got into the habit of starving myself overnight during the shift and then going through the McDonald's drive-thru and eating two fucking McChickens. Well, not two McChickens, two sausage egg McMuffins, two hash browns, and a Frappuccino. What is that? That was like 3,000 calories in the morning, right? So obviously all of that went straight to fat because most of that is fat and carbs, right? So when that happened, I got more sluggish. I was pre-hypertensive for the first time in my life because my blood pressure always stays a certain level. But that's what happens when you eat unhealthy, right? Obviously lost confidence. I stopped posting recent pictures, avoided the mirroring scale, which is why when I say stuff like I know a lot of people avoid the mirroring scale, I speak from experience. Everything I say is from experience. It's not just random shit, right? So I even had a moment because I always go back to my gym like I tell you guys, and I had a moment where people were like, "Hey man, like why'd you stop working out?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm in the gym. I'm working out because I was still working out like 4 times a week at least, but I wasn't doing what I needed to do in the kitchen. So I looked like I never fucking worked out in my life, right? I just look like a fat slob. All right. Now, My fat loss journey specifically was sustainable, but it didn't get sustainable until I focused mostly on identity shifting and realized like, okay, well, I didn't gain all this fat overnight, right? If you put on 40 pounds of fat, 30 pounds of fat, that shit's not happening in one day, one night, right? Because every pound of fat is 3,500 extra calories, right? So if you eat 35 extra calories at the end of the week, you'll gain a pound a week, right? That's usually how we gain fat. So it took me a couple of years to gain all that fat. So I realized like I need to stop trying to lose all this fat in like 2 weeks or 2 months. That doesn't make any sense. If it took me so long to gain it, I need to be patient and change my mindset so I can start doing what I need to do, start doing what I would do if I was the leanest version of myself. And it started with saying, right, I was driving past the drive-through at McDonald's, and I was like, you know what, let me just get two sausage egg muffins one more time. So I got the sausage egg muffins, got the hash browns, and then after I ate it, I was like, you know what? Would the leanest version of myself do this shit, right? Would the leanest version of myself do this shit? And when I realized that I wouldn't, I was like, you know what? This is the last time I'm fucking doing this shit, right? I was pissed off. I was like, you know what? Nothing tastes better than being lean, right? So with sausage, egg, muffin, pizza, whatever is your weakness, sushi, that shit doesn't taste better than being lean. So that's when I really locked in and I started thinking like my goal self. Because if you always think like your goal self, you're going to do what your goal self does, which means you literally have to become your goal self. Because if you think lean and you're doing lean shit, guess what? You get lean, right? It's that simple. So like I said, I didn't try to lose it all at once. I gradually reduced the calories. But when I started tracking, I started realizing like, yo, I could eat 3,000 calories at the beginning and lose some fat, then bump it down to 2,600, get a little bit more aggressive. And then as I got leaner and leaner and leaner, I would bump it down slightly, right? And it made me realize like, wow, like when you don't track, you might have 1 to 2 meals. You might have 1 meal and 3 snacks, but that shit can be over 5,000 calories if it's mostly chips and fried food easily, right? So my day was like one snack, well, two snacks and 1 meal. And that shit was like 4,500 calories. And you're probably thinking, how is that possible? I would stop at a gas station, get some candy right before work, get some candy and like a protein shake. But it was like a Nesquik shake, so it was like 250 calories. And then the candy was like 400 calories. So that was like 600 calories. I would have some kind of snack at work that was usually like 500 calories, some chips or some shit. Then I had that breakfast I told you about, that diabolical breakfast is like 3,500 calories. So right there, it's like 4,500 off rip, right? And I also focused on keeping strength to preserve muscle while losing fat. And listen, dark chocolate, coconut water, all that stuff, like all that stuff in moderation is good, right? A lot of us don't realize how little calories are in this versus when we're eating like a bag of chips. If you don't track how much you're eating, if you never track calories before, you have zero clue how many calories you're eating. Like this, you can't guesstimate. If you guesstimate, you're gonna give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So that's the first step in the journey, is really tracking your shit. All right, so step one is executing nutrition, and you want to make it as easy as possible. You don't want to do that shit where you're like, you know what, you're eating McDonald's, you're eating out every single day, you're drinking beer, and you're bloated, you feel like shit, and then you say, you know what, I'm cutting out all carbs, I'm cutting out all sugar and salt. Anytime someone says that, I'm like, yeah, they're a dumbass, they know nothing about nutrition. They say, I'm intermittent fasting, I'm cutting out all carbs and all fats and all, they say carbs, salt and sugar. That's like the dumbest shit of all time. First of all, where you get your sugar from matters. If you're eating candy, your calories are probably gonna be high as shit, and it's gonna be processed sugar. Versus if you're eating grapes and watermelon, that's fine, right? So your goal should be maintaining / building muscle and losing fat. That should be your primary goals, not losing weight. Stop focusing on losing weight, and then you lose a bunch of muscle and you look like shit. All right, a lot of you guys do that. All right, so make sure you're getting 0.8 to 1 gram per pound lean body mass protein. How do you know your lean body mass? You take your fucking body fat percentage. Moderate fats to high fats to keep your testosterone levels high, because if you have lower tests, you'll have more stress, more cortisol, more estrogen, and you won't be maintaining as much muscle. All right. Prepping your meals can help in the beginning if you have bad habits and you tend to procrastinate. Prepping your meals will help, right? When I say meal prep, I don't mean anything crazy. Remember when we were little and our parents made, like, they might have made some lasagna, they might have made extra fried chicken, they might have made rice and chicken, right? That was meal prepping, because after it was done, they put the rest in the fridge. That's meal prepping. All right, you don't have to put them in special containers. You can literally just make some ground turkey and make some rice. And then if you made too much, then just save the rest for tomorrow. Like, for example, if you're doing 8 ounces of ground turkey and one cup of rice, right? And then you cook a bunch of rice and you cook like 3 pounds of ground turkey, then just keep putting the rest in the refrigerator. That's basically meal prepping. You can put them in the same pan if you want to. Just make sure you're measuring it out and stuff like that. That's meal prepping. Don't cut bread, right? I eat more bread than most people who are way bigger than me. I eat more bread than they do, or at least I eat more bread than they say they do. Because I'll admit I eat bread, and they'll say they don't, and I'm like, well, how the fuck did you get fat as shit? They'll be like, no, I don't eat bread, I don't eat salt, I don't eat sugar. Like, okay, well, you should be 3% body fat. Because how am I 8 to 10% body fat? right? And I eat hella bread, hella salt, hella sugar. So what does that mean? It just means I'm tracking and I'm aware, and you lack awareness of what you're consuming, all right? Because the people who eat the healthiest, like if you ask everybody what they eat, the healthy people will say relatively healthy options, but people who say they eat the healthiest is usually the fattest people. Like people are fat as shit and they're like, yeah, man, I eat this, I eat that. I'm like, seriously? Oh my gosh, wow, you eat better than me. And I'm like, wow, man, you should be lean. Like, what's going on? How long have you been eating like that? They're just fucking lying. All right. Focus on whole foods. That's going to keep you full longer. That's going to reduce your cravings. And then for like snacks and stuff like that to keep your blood sugar stable, Quest chips and things like that will help, protein shakes, protein bars, all of that stuff. Now, strength training. All right, strength training is super important. You're going to do it 4 to 5 times a week to make sure that you're maintaining your muscle mass. Now, all of this stuff is not going to give you the fastest, results as far as weight on the scale, but it will give you the fastest results as far as body composition. Waist getting smaller, muscles popping more. All right, your rep range is going to be 6 to 15. Now, anybody who is not on steroids does 6 to 15 reps. All right, it is what it is. If you're doing an isolation movement, some people might go 15 to 20. That's okay for isolation. But as far as like heavy squats, heavy bench, all that stuff, people are not doing the shit that you see on TikTok with the sets of 3 to failure or the sets of 30 to failure, shit like that. That's great to do if you're on steroids, but natural people aren't doing that. And the people on TikTok that say they do that, they don't do that, which is why they look how they look. All right. Now, 1 to 4 rep range is more for powerlifting. This is all aesthetics, right? So the 6 rep range would be, the 6 to 10 rep range would be for heavier movements. I prefer 8 to 12 is usually the best for like pure aesthetics. And then 15 for like the lighter movements and stuff like that, right? And yeah, track your weights to make sure that you're not going down in weight. One of the common things that a lot of people do is, and I did this too, which is, where I get this from. And I've had clients do this back in the past, and I was like, gotta up the weights again. When you start to eat less, you start to, you start to get in your own head and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm tired. I've been working hard, man. I don't know, man. It was a long day at work. I'm just going to drop the weight today and I'll go back up next week, right? And before you know, you're going down every week, right? So you might have been doing 60s on the incline dumbbell. Now you're doing 45s 3 weeks later, right? You're going to lose a little bit of muscle. But if you do that in all your movements, you're going to lose muscle. You're going to lose a pound of muscle here, a pound of muscle there. Then, 2 months into your cut, you're down 3 pounds of muscle, which is going to slightly slow down your metabolism, affect your body composition as well. But if you continue that for a 6-month period, now you're down like 8 pounds of muscle. 8 pounds of muscle is a fuckload, all right? This is not 8 pounds of fat. 8 pounds of muscle is a lot, all right? Even 1 pound of muscle, even losing 1 pound of muscle is a lot. When you add 1 pound of muscle, you look completely different, right? Like muscle is what makes you look so different. Like I've had people come to me and they'll have like 20 to 30, they'll be my same height, of course. They'll have 20 to 30 pounds of less muscle than me. So they'll look completely different than me, right? They'll send me a picture on Instagram and be like, hey, man, like I'm 15% body fat, and I'm, 165, and they're like my height. And I'm like, okay, well, that means I have 30 pounds more muscle than you, so you got to put on some muscle because muscle makes you look way different. All right. Now, you don't want to overdo cardio, right? I will say, when I was doing boxing, I had to eat a fuckload of calories, right? When I was doing boxing like 4 days a week, I had to eat a fuckload of calories just to maintain, right? But that was like 1 hour and 30 minute, 1 hour and 15 minute intense boxing. The chillest part of it was the beginning where I would do 3 minute rounds of jump ropes, right? Or I would do 9 minutes straight of jump roping. Like that was the least intense part of it, right? Which is still a fuckload of, especially with the temperature, it was like 90 degrees outside, right? But the thing is, cardio in general is used to burn extra calories, right? But it doesn't tell your body to keep muscle, all right? Strength training is going to have your body keep muscle, right? Generally, if you're running, the reason runners look, slimmer than sprinters is because sprinting is a shorter period of time using, fast twitch muscle fibers versus slow twitch muscle fibers when you do long distance. And you don't need muscle to run long distance. Boxing, like if you want to be a full-time boxer or you want to run long distance, it's not conducive to have too much muscle. The only time you see boxers look muscular is when they get really lean before the fight. They get really dry and then they look kind of lean. Usually just like abs though. It's usually like abs and their shoulders are pretty cut and they're in perfect lighting and shit like that. But generally they look kind of, like 15% body fat, somewhere around there or higher. Just because it's more conducive to their goals, right? Because performance training is for performance, all right? You're not really worried about aesthetics. That's why you'll see like some football players are super aesthetic and then some of them are aesthetic, but they have like, a bigger waist because they're just eating for performance, right? So yeah, so when you're doing cardio, eventually you're going to burn through it because you don't need all that muscle to do cardio and it's going to burn some of it as fuel, all right? Too much cardio, by the way, is also going to increase your recovery demands. And you have to remember when you're in a deficit, you have a small amount of calories to work with. So if you're trying to recover from an intense strength training session and an intense cardio session, you're gonna have to go into your muscle stores because, like, okay, so think of recovery like a bank account, right? So say you're on a budget, you have $4,000, right? And cardio takes up half of that, and strength training takes up, the other half, right? So let's just say that you did strength training, you're $2,000 down, and then you did cardio, you're $2,000 down. Now your tank is empty, right? Now your tank is empty, and that's going to keep happening over and over and over again, and that's what's going to have you feeling like shit, right? And then eventually you're going to do more cardio, and then you're going to go into the negatives, right? That's usually what happens. So strength training is going to use a big chunk of recovery, and I've felt that for sure. It puts a lot of stress on your central nervous system, and then if you add hours of cardio on top, right, it's going to be pretty hard to recover. It's going to be like impossible. All right. So your strength training sessions are also going to suffer because usually if I increase my steps, I'm like, oh, let me do the 10K steps craze that I saw on TikTok. And then I increase my steps to like 10K, 15K. And then my strength training, I have no strength in the gym, right? I have no energy to push the weight, right? Because I'm recovering constantly from the cardio. And that makes a huge difference. That means I'm using more muscle than usual. And that's why the body composition generally suffers. Now, another thing that cardio will do, it'll elevate your cortisol levels. And, especially when you're cutting, you're going to be like, hey, I'm cutting. I'm doing all my cardio. I'm working my ass off. I'm getting 20K steps. I'm lifting for an hour and a half. Why do I look, kind of chunky? And why did I gain half an inch on my waist? It's because your cortisol levels are up, right? Your muscle loss risk is also going to be higher when you're that aggressive, when you're constantly doing extra cardio, right? So you're definitely going to be using more muscle because remember, you have limited energy to work with when you're in a deficit. All right, so when I get my leanness and you guys think I'm fucking lying, and some people are saying, oh, that's AI or you're on steroids, I'm literally strength training 5 to 6 times a week and getting 2,000 steps, maybe 3,000 steps, max. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm just focused on strength training so I can give all my energy to strength training. So what you prioritize and give your energy to, you're going to get the best results from. So if I'm constantly focused on strength training and getting stronger and maintaining my strength, right, I'm going to be a master at that versus if I'm trying to increase my hours of cardio and I'm trying to get the strength up, then one of them are going to have to give. You see what I'm saying? Like I told my friend, I'm like, yo, this boxing shit's intense. He's like, I told you, bro, I was doing boxing too and working out. And I was like, damn. But he's like, listen, on some real shit, you're either going to have to be the best boxer or try to be the best boxer, or you're going to have to do boxing and then still focus on your strength training because you can maintain your muscle mass while you're boxing. But if you're trying to get leaner and maintain all your muscle, and you box like 4 days a week, you're going to have to eat a fuckload and you're still going to have a high risk of muscle loss because the cardio is so intense, right? So the balance you want is to use cardio as a supplement, not the main tool, right? Strength training and nutrition should always be the main thing because all cardio could do is increase the deficit, right? That's all it could do. So a lot of people, right, they get that soft look instead of lean muscular look. It's because they do too much cardio, all right? They do way too much cardio. And that's like kind of the skinny fat look. Like a lot of people go from fat to skinny fat. That's like the worst fucking transformation of all time. Now, accountability. Easiest way to raise your standards is to be around people who have high standards. So generally, like when I sign a client or when I'm talking to a client, I have a mindset and I have a vision of where they need to go to. And they can't see that vision. My goal is for them to see that vision because the vision I have of them is the best version of themselves. And once they see the vision I see, then it's automatic. Their goals are going to be automatic, right? Because I'm like, oh, yeah, you could definitely see your abs again. They're like, no fucking way, you're lying. I can't see my abs ever again. Or, yeah, you could definitely get lean. You just got to do this, that. I could see the vision for them. But a lot of times they've never had someone say that because if you think about it, if you're like 15% body fat around other people, 20% body fat, 25% body fat around other people, you're leaner than the average 28, right? And you might look big in clothes. So like there's a lot of that specific in America. Like a lot of people are like 20, 30% body fat, but they look, when they have a pump in the gym and they wear the right shirt, they look like they might be 15%, right? So then people are like, no, you look big, you look good. Because they're kind of hiding their stomach and they're, you're not walking around shirtless in the gym, right? Because then you see a lot of stomachs. People are wearing like tight shirts or a tight jacket and they look, and it's like black, so it looks like they're lean, right? It's kind of like the chicks who like stuff their stomach in the fucking in the leggings and shit, and it makes their ass look fat, and you think they have a small waist, and then they come out of it and they have a big ass stomach. But anyways, But yeah, so like the guys around me would be like, "Nah, you look good, you look all right if you're 25% body fat." But in reality, you need to hold yourself to a high standard. You need someone who holds you to a higher standard. So I'm just thinking of everyone. I'm like, okay, you're trying to get to 10%. You can't have that low standard of, oh, I'm just gonna chill on the weekend. No, you got to be locked in every fucking day. You see what I'm saying? So you need people who hold you to a higher standard. You start eating some goofy shit, you need someone to call you out and be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like I be telling you, if I go out with my boys and I'm eating a piece of cake, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, let me see your ID. I want to make sure it's you, Luther, because it can't fucking be you if you're eating cake. That's goofy shit, right? So yeah, it's hard to hold yourself accountable when you develop bad habits, but you also have everyone around you that's supporting those habits, or everyone around you is, in a worse position than you are. Then you're gonna think you're good, right? I've had a lot of people who are like, nah, man, I'm not that bad, right? I'm not that bad because I'm the leanest around me. And I'm like, well, you're probably around, people from my 600-pound life because you're fat as shit. Like, they'll be like 30% body fat saying they're the leanest person they know. And I'm like, dude, you need to, I don't know where you live, bro. But that's insane. Like, I don't know if they live in like the country or some shit, but they look horrible. All right, so client result number one. Obviously, I know you guys saw this on the YouTube community post, but when Jason first came to me, man, he was, obviously struggling with doing different diets and like doing keto and all that stuff. Sometimes he would lock in, sometimes he wouldn't. And he just have a lot of moments where it was like, okay, he's losing weight. Then he plateaus. And it's because he wasn't focusing on the fat loss aspect and the maintaining muscle aspect as much. So once we got him on that body game program, really focusing on, those body game muscles and the strength rep ranges and, minimal cardio and nutrition, that's when he was able to drop the fat and put on the muscle. And you feel me, getting the steroid accusations now, he's getting all that shit, right? He's getting all the attention and stuff like that. All right, my boy Amin, shout out to Amin, right? When he first came to me, he was like, bro, I can't see my abs. And he had people telling him like, hey, you got to hop on roids to see your abs, man. Once you pass 35, once you pass 40, you got to hop on roids to see your abs. And I was like, nah, bro, we're going to see those abs without it, man. So now he's on body game. He got people accusing him of shit, and he's locked the fuck in, man. And he got the confidence back, and he's experiencing the benefits of body game, which I love to see. And when you put the work in, a lot of stuff I say won't make sense until you start to put the work in. But he put the work in. He stayed locked in, right? He got his confidence back. You love to see it, man. You love to see it. Best shape of his life. And a lot of people will be 30 or 29, and they'll be like, oh, my God, like I'm too old. I can't get in shape. It's like, no, your mindset is wrong. It's never too late to get in shape, man. Lock in. So repeating the simple formula, all right? Prioritize strength training, high protein nutrition, track every fucking calorie because you guys be lying about the calories. Like I said, every time I get on a call and someone's like, yeah, I eat lean. I'm like, oh, okay, you eat leaner than me. So you're 8% body fat? And they're like, oh, no, man. Like, okay, so what the fuck do you really eat? Y'all be lying. If you are above 30% body fat and you think you eat healthy, track your shit. You're going to see the ranch. You're going to see that you're frying everything. You're going to see that you're using fattier meat. Like you're eating ground beef, but it's just 73.27 instead of 93.7. Make sure you hydrate, sleep, don't sit around all day. You know what I mean? I can't really say that because I'd be fucking sitting around all day. Consistency over extreme effort, all right? Don't make big-ass changes. Small changes that compound over time is how you get those permanent results, all right? It's how you get those permanent results. Simple. Now, here's the bottom line, all right? If you want to see the V cut, you want to see the abs, you want to see all that shit, you want to get those steroid accusations. I'll post this shit. Listen, I remember this was last year. I remember I posted this shit on Instagram, and people were like, oh, you're on steroids. That's AI. This is that. I'm like, bro, all I did was work out, right? All I did was work out and take a fucking picture in the mirror, bro. But guess what? A lot of people will never get to that point. They'll never get to that point because they want to get there without doing the work. They want to get there without becoming a person, right? If you want to lose that big ass stomach of yours, you have to be consistent. All right. If it took you years to gain that big ass stomach, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna lose it overnight. That's number one. Number two, you don't have stubborn fat. You have stubborn habits. Very, very simple shit. And of course, you actually have to show up consistently. I would say consistency is the biggest point, and it's what people struggle with, right? That's why you don't want to sprint in the beginning. Just think of this shit as like a Mario Kart race, right? Or a marathon. Think of it as Mario Kart race or a marathon. Like, yeah, you can get out to first place early in a marathon, but you're gonna burn out quicker. Someone might be in 30th place, during the whole marathon, and then they're slowly going to 29th, 28th, 27th, and then they peak at the right time. That's how this fat loss shit is, right? You want to make sure that you are not burning out in the beginning. Kind of like the San Francisco 49ers. Every year, they practice too fucking hard. They go too hard in the first 3 games, and then everyone's hurt, right? Versus the Kansas City Chiefs are just experimenting in like the first 6 games, and they look kind of sloppy, and then they peak at the right time, then they win the Super Bowl type shit. You see what I'm saying? So you want to pace yourself. You want to be realistic with the pace. You're not, like if you have 50 pounds to lose. Best believe that shit is gonna go quick because listen, 6 months goes by quick, bro. It feels like it was just yesterday. I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna move to Thailand, right? And then I moved to Thailand. And I was like, okay, I'm moved to Thailand. And now it's a fucking year later, bro. Like time flies, all right. So you can be like, yo, I'm gonna lock in on my goals. Before you know it, 6 months is gonna pass. The time's gonna pass regardless. You might as well be closer to your goals than further away from it. You can spend the next 6 months to a year, right? Trying different shortcuts like you've already tried for the past 10 years, or you can do what actually works and see the progress consistently and be at your goals in that amount of time. All right. And another thing is stop believing excuses that even you don't believe, right? When people make excuses to me, I obviously don't believe it, but I'm not going to say anything because it has nothing to do with me. At the end of the day, like I said yesterday in the video about accountability, like at the end of the day, you're accountable for yourself. So I don't care enough about some random person who's making an excuse in the comment section or in my DMs to be like, no, like, no, bro, like you need to change your mindset. I don't care. It has nothing to do with me. If they keep lying to themselves, then they're gonna keep looking how they look. All right, it has nothing to do with me. It's not my problem. Right? Pick between the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Like 90% of the population has a pain of regret, right? But at the same time, you can always make a change. You don't want to wait till you have that stroke or you have that heart attack or something bad happens for you to make that change or to have to make that decision to make that change. All right. So here's the bottom line: if you're locked in, ready to get lean, sick of not seeing Johnson, you want to get on Body Game, right? You're tired of looking like Peter Griffin, you want to look like Goku. Hit the link in the description, man. Stay blessed.